Now it may be November 4th today when this video goes up, but to stick to the typical CDTV fashion of being late to just about everything, welcome to my Halloween upload. What can I add to this setup to make it more like spooky? There we go. One single pumpkin light. I thought it would just stay solid, but it keeps flashing. I'm gonna turn this off for the video, so it's not even really a pumpkin light, it's just a pumpkin. That's not a real pumpkin. So this video is a follow-up to a list I made quite a while back on the 10 most disturbing rap songs that I've ever heard, and a second list was definitely needed because a lot of the songs on this list, they give the songs on the first list a good run for their money. Now real quick, before we do get into the list, I want to say I would really appreciate you guys dropping a like on this video. It is very likely that this one is going to get demonetized, which means there's a chance that it will be recommended to fewer people. So if you drop a like, that really helps the video's analytics out and helps my channel in the long run. I don't normally ask for likes before I start a video, but on this particular one, I would really appreciate it. With that being said, this is CDTVProductions. Prepare yourself because this one does get quite grim. And let's get into the list.
From her cheek, maybe her feet. I'm trying to be discreet, but I really want to eat her out completely. Teach me to keep it away from her.
So yeah, I thought we'd kick this one off lightly, ease into the video with a small dose of gory cannibalism. On this song, Tech9 raps as a character that's desperately trying to resist his urges to eat women. Just like Pinocchio, he wants to be a normal boy. Just like Pinocchio. As I'm sure you can tell by the song being on this list, he doesn't resist those cannibalistic urges, and caves in after what was up to that point a relatively normal day. And the sound effect. The goddamn sound effect that they play to represent him just taking a big munch out of his date during oral sex is just...
Cause I got on my knees and started doing my deed, but then I accidentally chewed her.
As soon as I heard that, I knew that this song belonged on here. But outside of the lyrics as well, Tech made sure every element of this track gave out that off-kilter, eerie vibe. He really gets into character and uses different voices and weird accents to give the song even more of a demented feeling. He just sounds deranged on this song, not just because he's talking about struggling to restrain himself from eating a woman out in the most literal sense, the most horrifically literal sense of that phrase, but because of the maniacal way he delivers those lyrics too. The title of the album this song comes from isn't King of Darkness for no reason.
I'm possessed by evil demons that torture me while I'm sleeping. I keep dreaming of death and I'm hearing people screaming. The devil's spirit's trapped inside me and I want it out.
I'm aware, it's 2019, so the inclusion of this song on this list will bring out the everything Eminem does or ever has done is overrated crowd. But I think this unreleased song from 1998 is legitimately unsettling. Imagine Eminem's Slim Shady alter ego with all the light-hearted and tongue-in-cheek elements of that character cut out, and you get this song. No bouncy, fun beat, no comically over-the-top lyrics, just a cold, creeping piano beat and vivid imagery of Eminem's tortured nightmares. It may not be the most violent or shocking one on here, but the way Eminem so clearly paints a picture of demons torturing him inside a haunted house is pretty dark, with lines like, "Curtains catch fire, the house melts, my skin blisters and sticks together like twin sisters." That's just a horrific piece of imagery. This song actually came from the very first studio session that Eminem and Dr. Dre ever had together, the same session where My Name Is was created. But I'm assuming this one didn't make it onto the Slim Shady LP because it's definitely more sinister tonally than the rest of that project.
Half your body laying on my chest, the rest is on my stomach, that's including your breasts. And I'ma just take another guess. Now you probably wishing that you would've said yes.
Now that we've had a short break from it, let's jump right back into the cannibalism subject. Anyone who has listened to or went back to Tyler's earlier projects will know that his music used to be a touch more morbid. Flower Boy fans beware, he's telling very different love stories on this one. In the case of this track, Sarah, it's a very one-sided love story. It follows the narrative of Tyler stalking and falling in love with a girl, but when he gets rejected, he doesn't really take it so well. And when I say that, I mean he's on the very extreme end of the not taking it so well scale. Kidnapping Sarah, murdering her, eating half of her, committing necrophilia on the half that's left, then finally killing himself when the police show up. Yeah, Tyler touched on some extremes on his earlier material, because he was essentially using these disturbing, extreme lyrics as a way to vent out his frustrations with his problems in real life. Obviously, he wasn't going to do any of the stuff that he rapped about, but it truly came from a place of frustration over being rejected. Whether that actually makes the song more or less disturbing, I'll let you guys decide how you feel about that one.
I know they be crying when I'm cutting off the neck or peeling off the skin for some bacon fried croquette, baby.
I mean, even the song title alone of this one is too much for Apple Music, where it is labelled as Return of DaBaby. Come on, Apple Music, DaBaby wasn't even rapping when this came out. And as the title tells you, this song makes the list because it dives into territory that none of the other songs on this list do. This part right here. You see, Brother Lynch is one of the OGs when it comes to horrorcore rap, and that means there aren't really any taboo subjects that he won't rap about. Putting guns where guns really shouldn't be, and shooting them off, pretty normal fare for a Brother Lynch song. Taking the lives of absolutely anyone, including babies, to then cook them and feed them to his own children. Even that, Brother Lynch is fully comfortable rapping about that. However, with Lynch, you at least have the small comfort of knowing that this is completely fictional. Lynch is very inspired by horror films and puts that into his music, but his half-brother or brother, depending on the source, I couldn't really find a definitive answer, named Six features on this song. In 2004, Six was sentenced to 32 years in prison for molesting 2 underage girls, one of whom was his own daughter. 32 years just seems way too low for something that depraved. That's just absolutely horrific and makes his verse on this one pretty disgusting because, at least to some extent, what he's saying on here is closer to his reality than what Lynch is doing. Lynch's stuff is entirely fictional. With Six, you know there's actually this dark part of him that's truly there.
Teachers let it happen. I even see some of them teachers laughing. That's why I had a smile on my face when I started blasting. I wasn't crazy, all the y'all was sick.
Yeah, this is a track where Ill Bill raps from the perspective of Eric Harris, one of the 2 Columbine shooters. And he's pretty much just going through his thoughts at the time of the shooting. And that right there tells you why it can be hard to listen to. It's based around something completely real, and the fact he's rapping from the perspective of the person who committed the crime means that the track almost sounds celebratory in nature because that's how the killers viewed themselves. They viewed themselves as heroes, and the beat on this track displays that.
The anatomy of a school shooting, shotgun under my trench coat, and
yeah, as far as I'm concerned, this doesn't really seem like Ill Bill trying to glorify the tragedy. It seems more like him trying to look inside the brain of these killers and really try and figure out why they did it and then present that within a song. But I'd be lying if I said that I personally didn't feel like Columbine was mentioned specifically on this song just to give it a little bit more shock value. That's just how I feel about it. I feel like a track like this could be made without really going into specific details and working off of one tragedy in particular. But to be honest, one of the things about this track that's more disturbing than any of the lyrics is the fact that despite dropping over a decade ago, it's still pretty relevant, with school shootings still being more common than they ever should be. This track is a reminder of that fact.
You can't hide from the scarecrow, we smell your blood. Disfigured bodies and chunks of flesh in the mud. You're rubbing your life, but the corn feels like a maze.
Okay, so after 2 pretty heavy ones, we do get to jump into something that's less based in reality, but is more just a creepy song. Now, I know what's likely going through your head right now. That song sounds like it was recorded with Lord Infamous in a different room from the microphone. But weirdly enough, I feel like the low budget aesthetic is actually helpful towards the horror of the song. It essentially plays out as if it tells the story of a slasher film, and I have no doubt that those films inspired this track heavily. With Lord Infamous telling the story of his serial killer alter ego, the Scarecrow. While some of these songs focus mostly on gore or being shocking, I feel like this one has the whole package when it comes to being frightening and genuinely creepy. Yeah, it still has quite a lot of the violent aspects, don't get me wrong, but musically, everything about this track, every single part of it is just ominous. This song alone genuinely makes me want to avoid cornfields for the rest of my life, and if you listen to it, you'll know why.
A janitor at a junior high. He plants a camera used to spy on girls and boys, records their voice, a beautiful thing.
And we don't even really get a break from the tracks about children, except on this one, Apathy raps from the perspective of a janitor who is attracted to them. Not only that, but he raps as a janitor who is essentially 100% content being that way and is happy to act out on his urges. Disturbing is definitely the right word for this one. It's made all the more spine-chilling by the deceptively happy instrumental. What's so unnerving about this one is that it literally sounds like the theme song that would play in the head of a child predator who enjoys what they do to a sickening level. Look at the chorus! Just look at it. Needless to say, it's a controversial perspective to write from, and just like Ill Bill's song, it's an uncomfortable reminder of the darker side of life that very much exists. There's also the way Apathy creepily whispers at the end of this line that just, it makes me uncomfortable every time I hear it.
Late at night, his dreams to find a chick who's 50.
I guess at least within the track, Apathy offers some advice on how to avoid people like this janitor. I mean, it's obvious stuff, but yeah, good advice to follow. Avoid the creepy man with the creepy van.
And it was so damn sticky. Tears running down a slut face. I bet you wish another hoe was in a place.
With a lot of these songs, particularly the first three on this list, I actually find them enjoyable to listen to when I'm in the mood for them. It's the musical equivalent of watching horror movies. But this one is just, As you can tell by the song title and by the snippet, this song is about sexual assault. It's about committing it. They rap about this for 6 minutes, and it gets pretty brutal. If this was a horror movie, it would be the equivalent of those cheap exploitation films that exist purely to shock and have no other purpose than that. Now, before the people with the American flag as their profile picture fly in at me like they did on the last video with their "What about free speech, you sensitive cuck?" I don't think this should be censored. I don't think that they shouldn't be allowed to say this stuff, but free speech also allows me to say that I think this song is pretty trash and just a gross grab for attention. It legitimately plays out as a song glorifying sexual violence, and that's just grim. I mean, I know they were just trying to push the boundaries of shocking rap and test people, but it feels like there's no point to the song other than that. And as a result, it's a pretty uncomfortable and pointless listen.
Wanna take your time, don't rush it either. Cut each piece up like Pizza Hut pizza with a rusty cleaver. Then put each piece up in a freezer. Take out the trash in a couple of days.
For most of these, the song title explicitly spells out what the topic of the track is. I definitely wouldn't call many of them subtle. And this one is indeed about different ways of disposing of a dead body without getting caught. And Necro seems to know a suspicious amount about this subject. We need to get Detective 6ix9ine on this case ASAP to see if this song is closer to Necro's reality than we want to believe. Throughout his 3 verses on this song, he covers quite a few methods, such as 1. Draining the blood from the body, chopping it up, then placing it in plastic bags that you dump in multiple other people's bins right before these bins get picked up and emptied, carrying all the evidence away from you. 2. Burying the body deep at sea or deep underground where the smell won't leak out to the world above. Or 3. Putting the body in a wood chipper, then using it to fertilize your grass. Lovely gardening tip from Necro. And Necro brings it all around with his own interpolation of Let's Talk About Sex by Salt and Pepper. Seriously though, I am concerned about how detailed Necro gets on this song. Someone should look into that.
Started copping a plea, but I ain't really trying to hear her. Obsessed to buy a hand, bashed her face up in the mirror. I threw her down on the ground and then the skirt revealed the panties.
This track is just straight up violent. It's reminiscent of the Too Much Trouble song from earlier on in this list, but to me, this one is worse in certain aspects because of the cold, unflinching tone that it has. Now, before I get into it, I'm almost 100% certain that this is Kool G Rap telling a fictional story, but that just barely makes it less brutal. Putting it simply, in the first verse, Kool G Rap details savagely beating a woman for cheating on him, with every single detail of his assault laid out. And in the second verse, he raps as a pimp getting shortchanged by one of his prostitutes, and so he also brutally beats her, then proceeds to orally rape her afterwards, then beats her again. The title of the song, Hey Mr. Mister, comes from the random people in the street yelling out to Kool G Rap, asking what the hell he's doing, but he tells them to back off or else they'll get a beating too. It's so nonchalant in how cold-hearted it is, and for me personally, it's just not a song that I can find much enjoyment in at all. Not very surprisingly, Kool G's label didn't let him put this song on his first album due to the content, so it's one that he had to release himself independently. Really graphic, Kool G Rap lays out a very visual story with his lyrics. That's why Hey Mr. Mister is definitely up there with the most disturbing rap songs that I have ever heard. So that's all I have to say for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and let me know down in the comments below if there's any songs that you think I missed out on this list. Also, the link to the first part of this video will be linked in the description below, but just a warning before you go into that, I'm pretty sure the video is from like 2017, so it's a bit of an older video, and you can probably tell by just how it looks and my commentary and my voice. So yeah, just keep that in mind if you check it out. If you enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate you leaving a like or subscribing if you haven't done so already. And of course, turning on those notifications, always important. With that being said, this is CDTV Productions, signing out.